Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Honkai Star Rail video, and today, as promised, we are doing a character guide on Dr. Ratio. So Dr. Ratio is an imaginary hunt character who just dropped in the game. The thing that's a little bit more significant about him is if y'all check your mailbox, you get this guy for free in your mailbox. So I think this is a character guide a lot of people are going to be interested in because you're all going to have access to him, right? So the gist of what he's doing is that he is a hunt character, so he's very single target focused, but he really thrives on enemies being debuffed in that he deals follow-up attacks when enemies are debuffed, and he deals more damage based on the amount of debuffs that are on there, right? So he combos well with other debuffers. Now, for this video, I am going to run him through the showcase because obviously I have him, but I have not built him up yet. So we'll use the showcase version of him just to kind of take a look at him. So before we actually look at his kit and everything in more detail, we will start by going through the relics, ornaments, and we'll go through the light cones and kind of talk about your options for that, right? So let's go ahead and we're going to start off in the old time capsule here. The, where is it? The data bank. And let's go ahead and look at light cones first. So the big thing, and I talked about this earlier, and I think the reason why they are able to kind of get away with giving you Dr. Ratio for free is that his light cone is incredibly good. And I think players that want to play Dr. Ratio, like his light cone is a very good pull to go for, right? So what this light cone is going to do is it increases your crit damage. So you just get a flat crit damage up. And then for every debuff on the target, which once again, that's one of Dr. Ratio's goals, is to have debuffs on the target. So you're going to be running a debuff heavy team anyways, right? You get crit rate damage against that target increased for every debuff, and it can stack up to 3 times. When you use the ultimate to attack the target, Dr. Ratio, or whoever has this light cone on, will get a unique effect which increases your damage and enables your follow-up attacks to ignore defense. So this is going to heavily increase because you're getting a lot of crit damage here, right? You are getting just straight up damage to extra crit damage there. And then you're getting defense reduction, right? Or defense piercing, which that innate defense shredding is going to be really good to help your damage. And it's going to help us follow-up attacks. Because what I think you're going to notice with a character like Dr. Ratio, it's not that like his on-turn damage is going to blow you away. Like I think from what I've seen in the aptitude showcase or whatever, like his damage just seems like very good normal on-turn hunt damage, right? Like good like that. But the thing is he's doing all these follow-up attacks that are adding really good damage in between. And this light cone is really going to help that follow-up damage. So I think that's why it's so good, right? Now, I would say the hunt is one of the trickiest classes for light cones because most of the good ones are going to be very premium, right? So like if you're looking at Dr. Ratio, if you don't summon for his new one, pretty much any other 5-star you have is probably going to be better than any of the 4-star options. I find that the 4-star hunt options aren't fantastic, right? So this one here is another good one. This is the one with Topaz on it. And I would say this one's also very good because it increases follow-up damage. So I would say this would be your second choice because you're getting like a lot of the same stuff. You're getting crit rate and crit damage and follow-up attack damage. So I would say if you happen to have this Topaz one here, this one is also very good if you happen to have it, right? Otherwise, the Sela one, which I do happen to have, this is another really solid one. It's giving you just normal damage things, right? It's got crit rate, gives you buffs when you have speed, crit damage. So yeah, just normal good stats. Now, if you're looking for 4-star options, right? 4-star is kind of tricky. But let me just see if I can find it in here. This swordplay one I think is pretty decent. This is definitely one that you could run if you have it. This rewards you for attacking the same target, right? So if Dr. Ratio is always targeting the same enemy, the follow-ups I believe would count towards this. You can basically stack a damage up and you just get more damage for attacking the same enemy. So that's definitely like a decent one you could do. Otherwise, you could just go for, there is a 5-star, this one here. This would be like your free-to-play option. So if you decide that, you don't have any of the summonable 5-star ones, You don't really have a great 4-star option. I mean, you could always pick this one up, right? And I picked this one up just because Hunt, once again, if you're not summoning for premium light cones, it's a tough one because a lot of the 4-star ones aren't nearly as good. But this one here just gives you crit rate, against enemies who have less than 50% HP. And when you defeat an enemy, you get an attack up by 20%. So I think this is kind of just like a suitable fill-in option you can do if you don't have like one of the premium 5-star options, or maybe say that swordplay 4-star option. Maybe just go and get this one for free, because at least with this one, you're getting 5-star stats on it as well, which I think is something, right? So it's going to be kind of up to you to decide where you're at on the light cones. Let's go ahead and look at relics. And I would say Dr. Ratio has 2 main paths you can take with him, but for the most part, you're looking at a very standard DPS build. So you're looking at things like crit rate, crit damage, and speed, right? So one option being an imaginary character is you go with this Wasteland set. You get imaginary damage up on the 2-piece set, and on the 4-piece set, when attacking debuffed enemies, the wearer's crit rate increases by 10% and crit damage by 20% against imprisoned enemies. So I think this one's going to be very good, especially if you're going to run them with a character like Welt, because Welt specializes in imprisoning. And then Dr. Ratio, you know, anytime an imaginary character breaks, they will imprison. So like Dr. Ratio himself, he will be imprisoning as well. So I think this could be a very, very good light cone option. I think the other tempting route you can take is you can go follow-up damage route. So if you go with this Grand Duke set here, this has your follow-up damage. You could go at 4-piece with this, or you could just go 2-piece. And I think a popular set that people will run is they might run this at 2 to get the 20% follow-up damage, and then run a 2-piece Wasteland set to get the 10% imaginary damage. I think that could be another viable combo. Run a 2 and a 2. But I think if you're going to go 4-piece, I would do the 4-piece Wasteland set. I feel like that's going to be better than doing a 4-piece of this, because then I think you're almost a little too focused on the follow-up damage, and you want to have that imaginary damage as well. So my recommendation would be go 4-piece of the Wasteland set or that imaginary set, or do 2-piece follow-up, and 2-piece of that is probably what I would recommend gunning for there. And when you're looking at your specific body parts here, it's very standard, right? The feet, you definitely want speed. You want to make sure you're getting those turns in and keeping up with the team, right? And then on the body, you're probably going to want crit rate. But once again, if you can get your crit rate to a decent level without it, then you want to go crit damage. And remember, there are various parts of the kit where you can get a little bit of crit rate. So like if you take that 4-piece imaginary set, I think you get 10% crit rate there. So if you get really, really good substats and you can get them to like 50% crit rate, you might be able to get away putting crit damage on this. So go crit rate or crit damage on the body. And then on the feet, you want speed, which is very standard. And then we're going to go to the planner ornaments here. And, you know, what do you know? Very similar thing we've been talking about with these damage dealers. But this frontline Glamoth set, the speed set, probably what you want to do there. But you could also go with the inert Salsado one, which is right here. Because this one's going to increase follow-up damage specifically, right? And we've talked about this before with other characters that deal follow-up damage. So if you like having better follow-up damage, you could go with the Salsado one. Otherwise, just go with the speed one. I mean, what you're finding is a lot of DPS characters want this speed one anyways. So I'm sure a lot of players, when you're just grinding simulated universe for points, like I've been trying to just kind of grind this stage to get more of these, because I'm finding a lot of characters want them. But yeah, with follow-up damage, I think inert Salsado is also a good set you can run. And then on the link rope, you definitely want to go either attack percent or energy regen rate. That's going to be kind of your preference there. And then on the actual sphere, that's where you want to get your imaginary damage. And once again, there's very few exceptions to this. Most characters want their elemental damage on that if you can get it, right? So that's kind of the artifacts and relic and light cone recommendations. So with that, we're going to hop into his aptitude showcase here. We're going to look at his kit a little bit more closely and kind of just see how he works here as we go on. So let's go into the Dr. Ratio trial here. So we're going to hop in. They're going to give us a little bit of info. We're going to go through that ourselves. So let's go ahead and look at his page. So once again, when we are doing this type of setup, just remember the traces are 8 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10. So this is an E0, but he is going to have his light cone. So we got the really, really nice light cone here. And they did do the 4-piece Wasteland set, and they did do Inert Salsado. So I think this is definitely a fine set that they've given him, right? So let's go ahead and look at his actual skills in detail here. Hold on, let me go here. I was clicking the wrong button. So let's go to his abilities. So let's start with his talent, because that kind of summarizes what the character does, right? So when he uses a skill, he has a 40% chance of launching a follow-up attack against his target for one time, dealing imaginary damage that scales off of his attack. For each debuff the target enemy has, the fixed chance of launching a follow-up attack increases by 20%. So basically, the more debuffs you have, the better chance he is going to follow up, right? Once again, this is a 40% base chance. So if an enemy has 3 debuffs, it will be guaranteed because you're going to get 60% onto that. That also doesn't take into account any effect hit rate that Dr. Ratio has. I think also increases that chance. So there are a couple ways you can buff that, but I would say, you know, if you get at least 2 debuffs on an enemy, you got a pretty darn good shot he's going to do the follow-up, which is what you want. If the enemy is defeated before the follow-up attack triggers, the follow-up will be directed at a random enemy instead. So you don't have to worry about losing the follow-up. You're always going to get it, provided the enemies have a sufficient amount of debuffs on it, right? And then a bonus effect. When dealing damage to a target that has 3 or more debuffs, for each debuff the target has, the damage increases by 10% up to 50%. So, like I said before, his follow-ups and his damage will scale on the debuffs. So debuffs are very important there, right? His basic attack is just imaginary damage scaled off of his attack. His skill is he deals imaginary damage scaled off of his attack. And then some of the bonus effects. When he uses his skill for every debuff on the target, crit rate increases and crit damage increases up to 6 times. So once again, another place we're getting built-in crit rate, which would allow you to maybe go crit damage on that body slot, right? And then the other skill here is when a skill is used to attack an enemy, there is a 100% chance to reduce their effect resistance by 10% to help you apply debuffs more, which is good. And then his ultimate deals imaginary damage scaled off of his attack, single target, and applies the Wise Man's Folly debuff. When Dr. Ratio's allies attack a target with the Wise Man's Folly, Dr. Ratio launches his follow-up attack for one time. So, you know, normally he gets the follow-up attack only on his turns, and it's only, you know, a percentage chance based on the amount of debuffs. But with the ultimate, your allies will get it for one time also, guaranteed. Wise Man's Folly can be triggered up to 2 times. Only affects the most recent target of Dr. Ratio's ultimate. This trigger count resets after his ultimate is used again. So that's very good. So the idea is the ultimate's going to help the party trigger more follow-up attacks, and then the more debuffs are going to help him go off. And then his field technique, after using the field technique, creates a dimension that taunts nearby enemies, lasting for 10 seconds. After entering battle with enemies in this dimension, there's a 100% base chance to reduce each target enemy speed by 15% for 2 turns. And guess what? That counts as a debuff, so you're opening with a debuff on the enemies. Only one dimension created by allies can exist at a time. So with that, let's go ahead and hop in and see how he's going to look here. So we are going to go ahead and speed to our boss fight. We are going to hit the special dimension, which once again taunts. It brings them in, and then we can go ahead and attack him. So it literally summoned like a fake statue that taunted him, right? All right, so we do have the speed debuff on. Okay, and we got Japard. So we've got Pela, who's good at inflicting debuffs. So the enemy right now looks like he's got 3 or 4 debuffs. I can't tell if that first one's a debuff. Ensnarement, burn, speed reduction, hounding pursuit. Immediately uses... Okay. Yeah, so he's got 3 debuffs on, and then that other red one is just another effect. But yeah, he's got 3 debuffs, so that's great. We can go ahead and hit that. All right, so he's at 3 debuffs. So Dr. Ratio should be guaranteed to do the follow-up attack. We're going to hit Pela's ultimate as well. Okay, so now we have 4 debuffs on the enemy. So let's use this. And up there it said 100%. So it told us the percentage chance. And then we got the follow-up for an extra 26k at the end. So that's really nice too, is they have UI to tell you what your percentage is of getting it, right? So we'll go ahead and debuff again. We're just going to do a normal here, but then we'll put up the big fat shields with Japard. And then Dr. Ratio is about to hit an ultimate. So you can see 100% chance. We're going to hit the follow-up. Bam, we're going to hit the ultimate. Dropping towers down. So you can see it's a lot of like 25 to 30Ks, but they're triggering a lot. So I think it adds up, right? And you see now it's showing the percentage that, hey, Pela is going to cause a follow-up attack here. So you have that UI above the enemy's head. So like I could just do a normal here. Yeah, and we get the follow-up, right? So, dude, 38K on that one. That was very strong. So yeah, he's a very good, fun character. You can see we've got it again, so I can just do a normal attack. So what's nice here is Dr. Ratio now is giving you damage out of like your healers, your other characters. You're just building up skill points. Use his ultimate, you're going to pop a couple of follow-ups there. So yeah, Dr. Ratio, very good character. He is 100% worth building up, and you all have him for free. So definitely build him up. And then I'm going to say it's going to be up to you. If you really like him and you're going to use him a lot, his light cone is definitely worth going for. Like I said, especially too because Hunt is one of the tougher light cones. I don't think there's a lot of like, the 5 stars are just so much better than the 4 stars for the Hunt. That's like, yeah, you might as well go for the premium one if you have the resources to do it. So let me know what you guys think of Dr. Ratio. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.